Hello, this is Steve Malone with CompassFX. Hope you're doing well today and you're getting some good trades. Recently, I've done videos about trading with the pivots. I've talked about trend trading, where we're looking to trade off the pivot as the market has a bias one way or the other. Typically, when the market opens up above the daily pivot, we look for a long bias, a move to the upside. When the market opens up below the daily pivot, we look for a short bias, a downward direction in the marketplace. I've also spoken about a breakout of the pivot range as the market transitions from one side of the pivot to the opposite side of the pivot. Typically, we've seen in the marketplace where the market will move 2 or 3, maybe 4 days on one side of the pivot, go through a sideways type movement, a transitional phase, and then start to move to the opposite side for the next 2 or 3 days. That's typical of the marketplace. This has led to a number of questions I've received about the pivot tool. Which pivot's the right pivot to use? So today what I want to do is I want to talk about the pivots that are available at CompassFX. So real quickly here, I want to go over to the website, show you the pivot tools that we have available. They're free for you to download, just one of the additional resources from your friends at CompassFX. So let's go over and take a look at the website. On the home page of the website, you'll notice if you scroll down that we have some icons. Look for the icon that says MetaTrader 4 indicators and simply click on that icon. When you do, this page will appear. All you do is scroll down and you'll notice a number of indicators that are listed in alphabetical order. Of the pivots that are available to you, we have a normal pivot, a pivot that's customizable by the time zone that you trade. We also have pivots based upon Fibonacci levels, and we have a multiple time frame pivot. So let's go back over to the charts and let's talk about the differences of these 4 pivots. The primary pivot tool is just a simple pivot based upon the calculations. If you'll notice here, in this case, I'll go to my indicator index. I've got a basic pivot tool. Again, if you're not familiar with the daily pivot is based upon the previous day's high, low, and close added together and divided by 3. That gives you the pivot for the day. And then we have other calculations that give you the R1 to the R3, the S1 to the S3. And with this particular indicator, you can come in and you can change the colors of each one. So for instance, if you want a different color, let's say for the S3, let's say the market makes a strong move to these levels and you want to change the R3 and the S3, just change the colors, click OK, close it, and they have been changed. Not only has the label been changed, but the line itself has been changed. Now another pivot tool that's available to you is the Fibonacci pivot. Let's take a look at this one. The Fibonacci pivot is based upon the levels being Fibonacci levels instead of a calculation specifically off the pivot and the pricing of the pivot. In this case, the R1 and the S1 are based upon a 38.2 extension from the daily pivot. The R2 and S2 are based upon a 618 fib extension from the daily pivot. And the R3 and the S3 are based upon a 100% fib extension from the daily pivot. And you can see today, as we had this amount of movement in the marketplace, these worked out pretty nicely. The market, as a matter of fact, made a move down to about the fib S3, worked its way back up to the fib S2. So basically did a 1% fib extension off the main pivot, then moved back to about the 618, and then push back down where we're at right now. Again, you can change the colors of these pivots. The third pivot is a pivot tool that we've customized at CompassFX that allows you to adjust the time zone of when the pivot starts. Now remember, the pivot is based upon a previous period, usually it's the previous days, high, low, and close. However, what if you want the pivot based upon the European Open, or the pivot based upon the GMT? Well, let's take a look at this particular pivot. Now in MetaTrader, most MetaTrader platforms, as I'm using here from FXDD, is based upon Asian Open. Well, the pivots by Compass FX is a time zone adjustable pivot. The time zone number 1, which we're using, is the standard pivot, where we're looking at the typical new day of the Forex market, which is approximately about the Asian Open, about 5 p.m. Eastern. However, there's other settings here. There's GMT, there's New York midnight, there's the European Open, and then there's the US Open. So right now my setting is for time zone number 1, the Asian Open. But let's say, for instance, I want the European Open. I can simply come over here, double click, put 4 in there, click OK, and when I click OK, you're going to notice that the pivot lines will adjust. And they adjust for the European Open. So if you'll notice here, these levels adjust automatically based upon the open of the European session. So take a look here. The market went up off the pivot to the R1, and then today when we had the FOMC statement come out, it made an immediate move down to the S1 based upon the European session. It's a beautiful tool to use. So again, in this particular indicator, the Pivots Compass FX allows you 5 different time zones to adjust your pivots. The standard Asian Open, GMT, New York Eastern, midnight, European Open, and then the US Open. Then finally we have the multiple time frame pivot indicator. This allows you to look at different time intervals for the day or for a period of time on a different chart. For instance, I'm on the 1 hour Aussie dollar. And right now, based upon this indicator, this is the Pivots MTF or multiple time frame, I've got a day setting. The time frames are listed right here from 1 hour equals 60, 4 hour 240. These are the minutes of the time interval. A day, there's 1440 minutes. And then I can also select the week, which is 10,080 minutes for the week. So let's say, for instance, I'm on the hourly chart and I want to see the 4 hour pivot. So every 4 hours, update the pivot. If I type in 240, I click OK and close it. Now I have pivots based upon the 4 hour chart. Now, again, if I want a different setting, let's say I want to know the weekly setting, I can come in here and I can put in the weekly setting, click OK, close, and now these are showing me the weekly pivots based upon the week by week movement of the pivot lines. Now, one thing of note, if you are on a chart, the smallest interval you can go down to is that chart. So if I was on the 4 hour chart, the smallest pivot that I could show would be the 240. I am on the hourly chart. So if I went to here and I put on the hourly chart, it's going to look a little crazy like. There's all these lines everywhere because every hour the pivot is being updated. Not a very good look, but suppose for the moment I was actually trading down on the 5-minute chart. So on the 5-minute chart, it's showing me the hourly pivot. Now, obviously with the FOMC announcement, we had this big move down and the pivot's updated based upon that. But if you're down there as a scalper trading on the 1-minute or the 5-minute chart and you want to know what the hourly pivot is, this might be a particular tool to use. As you can see, going along the pivot here, we literally traded pretty much from level to level, and you can see how the market tightened up here. But even on that 5-minute chart, let's say we want to see what the 240 pivots are, or the pivot based upon the 4 hour chart. Click OK, and now look at this. You can see how the market had moved around the pivot, but notice how it moved up to the R1 and down to the S1. So on a 5-minute chart, the 240 or the 4 hour pivot is a wonderful tool here. As you can see here, we moved down, we broke the S3 here, and we pushed further down at the FOMC meeting. But if we go back in time, you can see how this might have been a nice little tool to use. You can see from the pivot to the R1 of the 4 hour, come back off of that a little bit, and then it proceeded up to the R2 and then to the R3, coming back to the R1. A nice little tool to use. So there you have it. you have a situation where you can come into the charts here, decide what type of pivot that is best for you. Again, I'll put this on the daily pivot. Okay, so we have the multiple time frame pivot. We have a time adjustable pivot. This is the pivot's Compass FX. Then you have the Fibonacci pivot, and then you have the standard pivot. And all of these you can change the colors for each level. Well, folks, this is Dean Malone with Compass FX. This is how to go about getting those different pivots from Compass FX. Again, when you go over the Compass FX website and you're on that home page, click on this link right here, the MetaTrader 4 indicators link. Then what you want to do is you want to follow these very specific instructions for each one of the pivots. Right click on one of the pivot indicators and follow the directions as they're outlined here, and then save the pivots into your MetaTrader 4 Experts Indicators folder. If they don't populate correctly the first time, you may need to close the chart or close MetaTrader 4, reopen it, and reapply the indicator for them to take properly. Well, folks, this is Dean Malone with Compass FX, hoping that some of the information I've shared with you about the various pivot tools available to you will help you in your trading. Y'all make it a great day. Get some good trades. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.